Welcome to my continuing driving school series. This time we're going to focus on the heavy tanks, and we're just going to look at some of the basic skills that you need in order to drive a heavy successfully. A lot of people misunderstand heavies. They think that you just have to roll straight in and blurp away. That's not true. So let's see what basic skills you need. Hello again everybody, and welcome back to Fujit's Blitz. And as I said, this is the heavy tank driving school. We're looking at part one of the basics. Now, a lot of people misunderstand heavies. Yes, they're bullies. Yes, they've got strong armor, and yes, they've got a fantastic gun, majority of the time. But that's not just about sticking yourself in harm's way, because heavy tanks are still vulnerable in certain respects. Now, this is the KV-1, the epitome heavy tank in the mid-tiers. It's a tier 5 tank. This is its armor profile. As you can see, it's not overly armored, but it's got medium armor where it needs it. And as you can see, there are thin places as well. Now, this is a front-on view of a KV-1 facing up against a VK3001. And as you can see, if you start to angle it, those armored parts start to go red. In other words, they're almost impossible to pen. And one thing that you hear a lot of is side scraping. What is side scraping? Well, side scraping is probably the most basic skill you need to understand when you drive a heavy tank. And there's no tank better to show you that than this, the KV-1. So this is a KV-1 side scraping off a building in front of a Panzer IV-G, and as you can see, it's already bounced 500. Now, the idea is this is a training room, and all I'm doing is showing you that I can still get shots into that Panzer IV-G, and that Panzer IV-G will never penetrate me unless he gets up close and personal and finds those weak spots. He will just continue to bounce regardless. And there you go again, another bounce. So now we've bounced over 1,200. I will now take the KV-1 out, stick another HE into him. I'm not going to wape him. And look, I can shoot him, but he will just continue to bounce me. This is side scraping. This is what you do. Now he moves forward. You would think, look, he's flat, dead on. He is able to now see virtually all my tank. As you can see, that gun is pointed, and he still bounces. Why? Why is that? Well, it's because of this angle. Look at that. This is what the angle is. I am side scraping off this building. That means the building is just an extension. All he can see is a lot of red tank. And if I stay here and he stays there, he will continue to bounce every single shot he sticks into me. Unless, of course, he changes it to HE. He will just bounce and bounce and bounce. And as you can see from my viewpoint, I can easily take shots on him. This is side scraping. But what does that look like from the Panzer G's viewpoint? Well, this is what it looks like. There you go, a big red KV-1. Now, the Panzer IV-G can basically see almost all of that tank, but there are parts of that KV-1, the vulnerable parts, which is the lowest glacis plate, that are covered because it's behind that wall. The KV-1 can poke out, he angles a little bit, he can get shots into the Panzer IV. The Panzer IV will continue to bounce. Now, this is what is called side scraping, because that KV-1 is side scraping off that building. So the Panzer IV moves, gets into a better position. Now the KV-1 is and all of a sudden he's gone red again because he's angled again. All I can do is track him. There's nothing else you can do with this KV-1. You are not going to pen him when he's like that. And if you can see, the KV-1 is not moving. The Panzer IV-G has got almost all of that tank in the wide open, and he can't do anything about it. That is the basic art of side scraping, and this is the first massive skill that you need to learn in driving a heavy tank, because this skill applies to every single heavy tank out there. But how does that now cross over into an actual game? So this is me purposely doing a game where I'm going to try and bounce and side scrape an angle in a KV1. Now, as you can see, I've put it in a position here. It's slightly hauled down at the moment. There's a bounce. Bounce 400 so far. Bounced 400 at the moment. And I've got tanks all around me. Now I'm going to side scrape off this rock. The Churchill can't get me. The KV1 the other side of me can't get me. I am able to bounce. I've bounced 780. This is what you need to do. I am protecting that lower glacis plate, and I'm angling the tank to 2 angles. I'm side scraping off the one, and I was basically angled to the other. This way, nobody can penetrate me. It's this straightforward, guys. And as a skill, you really need to know this if you're going to be successful in a heavy tank. We've now bounced 700. And all the Reds can see me. They're all there. And they just cannot pen me. It's that simple. They try as they might to pen me, but they just can't. And this is what you need to learn with side scraping. See, another bounce. We've now hit over 900 bounces so far. We haven't even got a scratch. Every single thing that's come our way has bounced. This is a fundamental skill in driving a heavy tank. Now, in this particular game, as you can see, I mean, we start losing my team pretty quickly, and the red team flank us in the end. But the idea of this video was not to actually show you how to win a game. It was to show you how to side scrape, how to angle your tank, and how to make sure that you get these bouncy shots. And there's a big bounce there from a KV220T. Now, that's a pretty formidable tank, to be honest with you. I was almost wide open, and he still bounced me. We've now bounced over 1,000 shots. That is a lot of damage, considering that the tank, the KV1, only has hit points of 960. So we bounced more than the tank has hit points. This is how you drive a heavy successfully. In order to do this, however, you need to really get onto Armor Inspector and understand the armor of these tanks. You need to wiggle it, jiggle it, angle it, and understand the maximum and most optimum angles you can get at in a KV1 and all the other heavies to bounce these shots. Here we go again. We are going to side scrape off the corner of this building. There are tanks coming to the left of us, there's tanks in front of us, and I'm going to try and angle this KV1 to get bounce after bounce. So you can see the angle here. Now, the angle on a KV1, it doesn't apply to every bounce. The angle on a KV1 doesn't apply to every single heavy. The angle on a KV1, for example, is about, the maximum angle is about 23 degrees, which takes a lot of sort of getting used to. Now we've bounced 600. Okay, the one tank is putting shots into my lower glacis plate. That's the KV over there. But I'm trying to angle it towards that Churchill and towards the other KV on the, and as you can see, we're just bouncing the Churchill left, right, and center. I don't know where that shot went. We are continuing to bounce the Churchill, and eventually we get wiped out, but we bounce over 1,000. Now the thing is, once you've mastered this skill, your gameplay in heavies will change drastically. Now watch this. This is a good friend of mine, Rob King, who absolutely loves his KV1, to be honest with you. So he understands how to angle it and how to side scrape and all that sort of stuff, because he's been practicing and practicing and practicing, and he rolls out in this thing a lot. So he understands the mechanics of side scraping, and he understands the mechanics of angling, and he understands the KV1 incredibly well. Now the thing about the KV1, I absolutely believe this is the best training heavy tank you can go out in. It is very forgiving if you understand its angles. If you don't, if you get it wrong, however, then things will pen you. What you will see in this game is how Rob King bounces almost everything that comes his way. So far, he's already bounced 200. He's already taken a kill. He's dished out 600 damage. And what he's going to do, he's going to continue angling and jiggling and angling and jiggling. Okay, That one there is going to put one into him, but it's, you know, he's going to probably lose most of his hit points now because he's just going to take this M4 out. He's not going to angle to him. He's not going to wiggle and jiggle. He's going to try and angle. He'll try and get a few bounces, but it doesn't really matter. He just wants to take the M4 out and get it cleared because it's a pain when all the other tanks are the other side of the map. So the M4's done well here. Left Rob King on next to nothing hit points. You would think that Rob now is in a really tough spot. Well, he is, to be honest with you. And most people would think he ain't going to last much longer. He's got less than 100 hit points left. And he's got some big tanks in front of him. There's 2 Matildas, a Hetzer, and another KV-1. So he's going to sit here and look at this. He's going to now bounce almost everything that comes his way. And every single tank on the opposition side are going to be putting shots into him. This is what heavies are meant to do, guys. Heavy tanks are meant to absorb the shots coming from the enemy, allowing the mediums and the TDs and all the other tanks on your team to get them whilst they're reloading. Look at this. I mean, this is just bounce after bounce after bounce. He's on less than 100 hit points. He's now bounced over 700. Now he's bounced over 800. And he will continue to bounce all the way through this game. Another bounce. 900 bounces now. This allows his team to put shots in whilst those other red tanks are reloading. He's now bounced 1,200. I mean, this is just fantastic. And don't forget, he's able to back out. Now is 1,500. He is now basically 2 KV-1s on the team. This is tantamount to having 8 against 7 when you have this many bounces. And he's still bouncing away, and he's still bouncing and able to put shots on, just like we saw earlier. 1,600 bounces. This is phenomenal stuff. This is why you need to learn this particular skill. He still bounces. He's going to get up to 2,000 bounces at this stage, 1,900. And he's able to still clear out the other tanks. This is how side scraping and angling in a heavy works. And boy, has he made it a lot easier for his team to win this game. Don't forget, he was on less than 100 hit points when he went into that. That is spectacular. And of course, you know, he gets a well-deserved mastery there. Now, to prove to you that it's not just the KV-1 that'll bounce, this is a very good friend of mine, soulinthemachine, rolling out in the Tier 6 German Heavy, the VK3601H. Like I said earlier, side scraping, not all tanks can side scrape. I give you that. A lot of the American heavies can't. But the thing about heavy tanks, and this is a fundamental that you need to understand, they are able to angle to absorb shots. I mean, the epitome of the heavy tank that absorbs shots next to nothing is the mouse. But we're not looking at the mouse. We are looking at the lower tiers to get these basic skills down. Every single heavy has got armor. This is why they're heavy. They have longish reloads majority of the time. I mean, okay, not all of them do. And they dish out quite a lot of damage because they've got those bigger caliber guns. But the reason why they're heavy tanks, and this is where people misunderstand it, it's not because they've got bigger guns, it's because they've got more armor. Now, once you understand the mechanics of side scraping and angling, look at this. Bounce, bounce, bounce. That's 2 massive bounces in succession because he's angled. Another bounce. That's 700 bounces so far. He's dished out less damage than he's absolutely tried to take and bounce. He is absorbing the shots. This allows his team to put shots in onto the enemy tanks. And this is the idea of a heavy, guys. The heavy tank is meant to be the bully. It's meant to absorb the shots coming from the enemy. But you can only do that once you understand how to angle, wriggle and jiggle, and side scrape. Now, there's nothing he can side scrape off here, to be honest with you. So what he's doing, he was side scraping a little bit off that rock, but mostly what he was doing is he's angling his tank. Okay, he's not going to be able to angle reverse. You know, people are always going to put shots in from behind. But so far he's bounced 700. He's dished out 1,600 in damage. The idea of this tutorial is not to show you how to play the tank as such, it's to show you how to angle the tank, what you need to do in angling the tank, and how to side scrape. Another thing that heavies do very well, especially the Americans and the British lines, is go hull down. Now I'm not going to show you hull down in this video because I did a video purely on hull down, and if you have a look in the top right hand corner there is a bar that you can click on that will take you to that video. This video is all about angling and it's about side scraping. Here he is, you can see he's angling that tank to try and get it to those other tanks. He's not being very successful at this point, but he's already bounced just over 700, which is quite a lot, to be honest with you. I mean, that's half of his hit point pool that he's bounced. Had he not been able to angle, had he not been able to sort of side scrape, he would have been wasted long ago. But because he understands the mechanics of angling, he can bounce. Okay, he didn't bounce that one either. But again, that's not the point. You're not always going to be successful. Rob Kin was very successful in the KV1, as you saw, but he wasn't against the M4. So you have to appreciate you are going to see he's side scraping off a dead tank. He gets the bounce and he gets the win. And another fantastic mastery in the VK3601. So this is me going out on Black Goldville, and again it's just to show you how you can angle your tank during an actual game. And this is an actual game, guys. This isn't me in a training room or anything like that. This is an actual game, and I purposely played it this way to get this point across. On Black Goldville there is this big massive rock pile here in the middle. What I'm going to try and do, I'm going to park the KV1 near this big rock pile and see how many bounces I can get while still putting fire onto the enemy team. So we've already taken a couple of bounces and we're in this position. We're trying to angle up to numerous tanks here. Okay, I was distracted there because there was a tank coming from behind. But the idea is to try and angle and wriggle against numerous targets. I've got targets on the left and I've got targets on the right. But once you know how to angle your tank, you can wiggle in, jiggle, so that you can bounce multiple targets left and right. And what I'm doing here, I'm deflecting and bouncing the shots from the KV220 and from the T34. You can do this. And this is what you need to understand. You can, if you wiggle and jiggle, as Bushka says all the time, bounce multiple shots from multiple different angles. But to do that, I really cannot emphasize this enough. You've got to get on to Armor Inspector. Now, Armor Inspector is a great tool, guys, and it's free to a certain extent. Get on there, have a look at the armor profiles of these tanks and the positions you need to get them in order to be a bouncy big ball of rubber, because it's invaluable. Once you understand the tank and the mechanics of the tank and how the tank's armor actually works, you will be a lot better at driving heavies. You really will be. And as you can see there, like I've bounced, well, okay, I've only bounced over 600. I'm not bouncing the length of Rob King. But as you can see, there's one tank left. I've almost got a full hit pool. I've taken the tank out. I've done just shy of 1,000 damage. This has really helped my team because I've absorbed, and you see that, the KV220 angled, I jiggled, I bounced him. This is great. Now we've done over 800 damage, and this is what you should be looking at. He can't bounce me because he's too busy looking at the scavenger, and it's all game over, and I do 1,000 damage, bounce 719. That's how you play it, guys. It's as simple as that, and I come away with almost all my hit points. Now the thing is, like I said, it's not just the KV1 that does this. All heavies will do this, and this is my friend Dwarfnz of the clan TOXIN. He's already bounced 200, I didn't show you that one. But he's now bounced 440. He's got a tank right in front of him, but look at the way he's angled his tank. He sort of angles it, so he's optimizing and narrowing that angle. So when the shell comes in, it's just going to deflect straight off the tank. And this is how the side scraping and the angling of your tank works. Now I wanted to show you this next clip. He is now going to face up against an SU-100Y, and there is, look at the angle of his tank. Boom! Massive bounce. That's a huge bounce. He's now bounced 900. I mean, that was a massive bounce. It allows him to then go in and wipe out the SU-100Y. And this is what we're talking about, guys, when you're bouncing. So I'd like to thank my friend Dwarfnz for supplying that clip, because it emphasizes the point that once you know your angles on your tank, you will deflect the shots coming at you. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with my good friend Rob King, bouncing almost 2,000 potential damage from multiple tanks. I mean, this is just the epitome of side scraping and angling your tank. So if anything you take away from this video, it's get yourselves onto Armor Inspector. Have a look at your tank's profiles when it's facing off against another tank, either in its tier or just a tier above, because those are the tanks you're going to face, guys. Get used to those angles. Get out there and practice, because you need this skill to play a heavy. You need to know how to angle, to wiggle and jiggle, and side scrape. And talking of side scraping, if you're in a clan or if you've just got friends on Blitz, get into a training room. Master this fundamental art, because believe me, you need it when driving a heavy. And if you can nail side scraping, wiggling and jiggling, angling, and even haul down, and don't forget, watch my video above, it's in the right hand, just press that, you will be more successful in a heavy tank. You really, really will. And whilst these are basic skills for heavies, once you've got to grips with them, you can actually move them onto other tanks like TDs and mediums. I hope this has been informative. This is the end of the basic parts of the driving school series, and next time we'll move on to the more advanced tactics. I'd like to thank my good friends soulinthemachine, Dwarfnz and Rob King for kindly supplying their replays so they can show you these tactics so I could get this point across. If you've got any decent replays, guys, send them to me at fujitsblitz@gmail.com. And by all means, comment and like below. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. And if you've got some friends or you're in a clan and they haven't subscribed, get them to subscribe, because it makes me happy and it's a really nice thing to do. But not only that, the more subscribers I get, the more amazing content we can get out there. And with that, I will say my usual, stay safe out there. Have fun on the battlefield and happy tanking, guys, because that's what it's all about. Having fun and being happy.